Thank you for tuning in to this presentation, Transition Beyond IDEA. Michigan Alliance for Families is your guide to all things special education across the state. We're totally free and have regional parent mentors that live where they serve. They know their local communities and are available to help you find information, resources, and answer your questions. This is an overview presentation that will touch just a bit on each of these topics. I will discuss what the federal regulations say under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA, about the role of schools in transition. I will talk about the age of majority, decision-making, public benefits such as supplemental security income, Medicaid, home help services, and food assistance, vocational rehabilitation services, and community mental health services, including person-centered planning and self-determination. And finally, some tips for supporting a person who is turning 18. Transition planning under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA, may start earlier if determined appropriate by the IEP team, but must start before the student turns 16. The student is the creator of the transition plan in collaboration with the IEP team. The IEP team includes the student. If the student does not attend the IEP meeting, the district must take other steps to ensure the student's preferences and interests are considered. The IEP team also includes the parents of the student, at least one regular education teacher if the student is or may be participating in the general education environment, not less than one special education teacher, or where appropriate, one special education provider, a representative of the district who is qualified to provide or supervise special education and is knowledgeable about the general education curriculum and the resources of the district, an individual who can interpret instructional implications of evaluation results, at the discretion of the parent or the district, other people who have knowledge or expertise about the student, including related services personnel. District and parent or student each decide who they feel has specific knowledge or expertise. Representatives of any agency likely to be responsible for paying for transition services with the consent of the parents or student who has reached the age of majority. Transition services means a coordinated set of activities for a child with a disability that is designed to be a results-oriented process, is focused on improving academic and functional achievement to facilitate movement from school to post-school activities, including vocational education, integrated employment, including supported employment, continuing and adult education, adult services, independent living, and community participation. Services are based on each student's individual and unique needs and takes into account the student's strengths, preferences, and interests, and includes opportunities to develop skills for work and community life. Before the student leaves school, the IEP must also contain, if appropriate, a statement of each public agency and each participating agency's responsibilities, including financial, for the transition activities. In Michigan, at age 18, all individuals become legal adults. This is when they reach the age of majority. This includes people with disabilities. All rights covered by state and federal laws automatically transfer from the parents to the individuals at age 18. Under the IDEA, students with an IEP and their parents must be given information about this transfer of rights before their 17th birthday. Individuals who reach the age of majority and need help making decisions on their own may choose an advocate to assist them with their education transition plans. At age 18, students with an IEP have the right to attend their IEP meetings, invite anyone they choose to their IEP meeting, consent to any special education evaluations, to provide input during the development of their IEP, to give signed permission for any personal records being sent to any outside agency under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, to disagree with any school records, and to access dispute resolution options such as IEP facilitation, mediation, state complaints, and due process. Other rights that transfer to individuals at the age of majority are the right to sign legal contracts such as a home lease, purchasing a car, or financing a mortgage, the right to get a credit card and driver's license, open their own bank account, marry, vote, and enlist in the armed services, consent to medical treatment, and decide and make their own living arrangements. A big change that comes with the transition from school to adult life is the difference between the school service system and the adult service system. A free, appropriate public education, FAPE, is an entitlement for eligible students required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Most post-school services are eligibility-based. Some general things to think about when an individual is turning 18 are obtaining a Michigan ID if the individual does not have one already. They are issued by the Secretary of State and are easier to obtain before the age of 18 related to the documentation that the Secretary of State requires as a minor versus a legal adult. Individuals who are deaf, hearing impaired, or autistic can request that a communication impediment designation be added to their driver's license or state ID card to notify law enforcement about specific communication needs. At age 18, individuals have a right to register to vote and a right to assistance when voting. All men 18 to 25 who are U.S. citizens, including people with disabilities, must register with Selective Service. An exemption based on disability can be requested if the draft is reinstated. Age 18 is a good time to think ahead to the future and the need for benefits such as supplemental security income, Medicaid, home help services, and food assistance, as well as adult services that will provide short-term or lifelong assistance with finding and keeping a job, living independently, participating in community life, and post-secondary learning options. All of these will enable individuals to have income, supports, and services that they need to live meaningful lives. Decision-making is a key topic that parents worry and sometimes avoid thinking about when their loved one is turning 18. They don't know where to get accurate information about their options and how to provide support to their young adult who is legally old enough to make their own decisions but needs support. At this time, guardianship is often considered, many times without having the information about alternatives that are available when the individual has family, friends, and other allies in their life who will provide support to them. Supported decision-making is a tool people can use to make decisions with help from family, friends, and others who know the individual and who the individual trusts. Supported decision-making starts with acknowledging that people with disabilities have the right to make their own decisions and receive the support they need and want to understand the situations and choices they make while maintaining their rights. As adults, we need and ask for help and support at various times in our lives. We seek medical advice from doctors, we consult financial advisors, and ask family or friends for advice and tips when we are moving or buying a house. Supported decision-making mirrors how all adults make decisions. Autonomy means making one's own choices, learning to solve problems, and experiencing the consequences of making those choices. Guardianship is a legal relationship established by the court in which a person is given all or some authority over another person. Having a guardian impacts a person's right to live where they want and with who they want, and where they can go, choose their friends, make their own health care and medical decisions, make decisions about how they spend their money, sign contracts, get a driver's license, own a home, and date and get married. Information families hear or receive about guardianship is not always accurate. Some myths are that guardianship protects the person, prevents bad things from happening, and will ensure that good things happen. The facts are that when people have guardians, they can still be abused by family members, friends, or strangers. Just like anyone else, they can be hit by a car, choose the wrong foods, destination, or friends. and guardianship doesn't guarantee that the individual will get the services or supports that they need. When individuals have a guardian, people often talk only to the guardian and leave the individual out of the conversation about decisions that affect their lives. All adults have the right to make decisions, to direct their own life, and to be treated with dignity and be respected as an autonomous adult. Adults seek advice from family, friends, and experts when making important decisions. None of us are truly independent, never asking for help or seeking advice when we need it. Person-centered planning and self-determination guidelines mandate that the choices of adults with disabilities are respected and honored so they maintain autonomy. Many options other than guardianship are available to support individuals in making decisions that affect their lives, such as powers of attorney and authorizations to share information. Person-centered planning strengthens the supports around an individual to preserve the person's autonomy and decision-making, thereby rendering guardianship unnecessary. Person-centered planning documents who the individual has chosen to assist them in making life decisions. Self-direction is a way for people with disabilities to hire and manage providers of publicly funded services and supports with the assistance they need. There are safeguards to support decision-making authority and civil rights protections for individuals with disabilities. Guardianship restricts a person's freedom to make their own decisions and should only be considered as a last resort when no alternatives are available. Guardianship should be reviewed regularly to confirm it's still necessary, and families should receive information about alternatives to guardianship to support people with disabilities to make decisions about health care, money, education, housing, and relationships or other areas. A court should only grant a guardianship after a full and fair court hearing that includes the person with a disability. Everyone's decision-making ability should be supported to the maximum extent possible. The support of family, friends, and allies provides more protection for a person than guardianship through their guidance, support, and help, and enables multiple people to assist the individual rather than only one person. Formal systems of support can help young adults and their families to use the IEP planning process to support autonomy, decision-making, and self-determination. Advocacy organizations provide support in education, and community mental health programs must support implementing the principles and practices of self-determination. And I'm going to talk more about person-centered planning and self-determination in a bit. I'm going to move on and talk about public benefits, starting with Supplemental Security Income, SSI. Generally, this is the Social Security benefit that individuals will apply for at age 18 when the individual becomes a legal adult. SSI is a federal program funded by general tax revenues, not Social Security taxes. It is a Social Security benefit that is different than the Social Security benefit people get when they retire. It provides monthly payments to meet basic needs for food, clothing, and shelter to individuals who are 65 or older, blind, or disabled based on certain criteria. The base monthly federal amount varies on the living arrangement and countable income. Not everyone gets the same amount. An individual may get more if they live in a state that adds money to the federal SSI payment. They may get less if there's other income such as wages, pensions, or Social Security benefits. The benefit may be less if someone pays household expenses for the individual, or if someone lives with a spouse and the spouse has income. An individual may be eligible to get SSI if resources are worth $2,000 or less. If someone is eligible for SSI, the individual is automatically eligible for Medicaid. The eligibility requirements are the same. Adults with disabilities can apply for this benefit as soon as they turn 18, even if they still live with family. The initial application will usually be for SSI and Medicaid together. If someone needs assistance managing their SSI benefits, a representative payee can be assigned to help the individual. This can be a parent or someone else the individual chooses to help them. There are three things that are considered in the SSI application and eligibility process: determination of a disability, income, and assets and resources. Something to keep in mind is that different systems have different eligibility requirements. If an individual is eligible for special education services, that does not mean that the individual will automatically be eligible for public benefits. Disability Determination Services is a department of the Social Security Administration that determines whether the individual has a qualifying disability. This means the disability is severe, long-term, and limits the person's ability to work. If an individual doesn't work, for example, a student who has no work experience, they will look at how the disability affects the person's day-to-day activities. It's important to provide detailed information about the disability and how it affects day-to-day living, such as taking care of personal and medical needs, going to school, communicating, managing money and making decisions, developing relationships, and accessing and participating in community activities. Income is anything an individual receives that can be used to pay for their food and shelter, which is rent or mortgage and utilities. It can be cash, wages, income not earned like Social Security benefits received because a parent retired, passed away, or became disabled, or in-kind support, which is food or shelter that someone receives for free or less than its value. If an individual received SSI as a child, meaning under age 18, when the individual turns 18, there will be a redetermination using the disability, income, and resource rules for adults. Prior to age 18, a parent's income and resources are taken into consideration. At age 18, it's only the individual's income and resources that are counted. This is why some individuals may not be eligible for SSI until the age of 18. In addition to income, Social Security looks at the individual's resources and assets. Resources that are counted for SSI eligibility are bank accounts, 401k accounts, stocks and bonds, and trusts that are not special needs trusts. Special needs trusts may need to be reported to Social Security, but are not counted as resources or assets for eligibility purposes. Resources that are not counted are the home you live in, one vehicle, personal effects and household goods, life insurance under $1,500, burial spaces and funds under $1,500, and up to $100,000 in an Achieving a Better Life Experience ABLE account. Medicaid is health insurance administered by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. It covers doctor visits, prescriptions, surgery, durable medical equipment that a doctor prescribes, such as a wheelchair, a walker, or a hospital bed. It also pays for community mental health services that are medically necessary, such as job development and job coaching, respite services to give caregivers a break, hiring staff to support an individual in accessing and participating in their community, becoming more independent, working and/or volunteering, and skill building services. Medical necessity is based on personal information, clinical information, and for community mental health services based on the person-centered planning process. I'm going to talk more about community mental health services, what medical necessity means, and person-centered planning in a bit, as well as why it's important to have Medicaid even if someone has private insurance. If for some reason the Medicaid application does not get completed with the SSI application, individuals can apply separately for Medicaid online or by submitting a paper application. Medicaid is always the last payer. If an individual has other insurance or is eligible through another entity that will cover equipment or services, those must be accessed first. I'm going to share some information about a Medicaid program called the Disabled Adult Child, or DAC, program. And I'm sharing this because this is a situation that happens frequently that parents are not aware of. This is a rule about an individual keeping Medicaid coverage under the Disabled Adult Child program when their Social Security benefit changes. The situation that triggers this change is that the parent retires, passes away, or becomes disabled, and their adult child with a disability begins collecting Social Security benefits under the parent's work record. For example, an individual with a disability is 25 years old and has been receiving SSI and Medicaid since the age of 18. A parent retires and the adult with a disability begins collecting Social Security under the parent's work record because it is a larger benefit for the individual. Social Security automatically makes this change. Due to receiving this new, most likely higher Social Security benefit, the individual may be kicked off of Medicaid due to the increase in income. Think back to the eligibility requirements for SSI and Medicaid. So this special rule says that if an individual received SSI at the age of 18 or older and then started receiving Social Security benefits based on this change in the parent's situation as mentioned above, and if it wasn't for this change in the parent status, the individual would still be eligible for SSI. This individual is still eligible then for Medicaid with no deductible, called a spend down, meaning the income increase is not considered for eligibility under the Disabled Adult Child Medicaid program. This continuation of Medicaid is usually not automatic. If a parent is retiring, this is something that needs to be planned for and communicated to Social Security and Medicaid caseworkers so the Medicaid is not disrupted, especially if someone is receiving community mental health services that are paid for with Medicaid dollars. Before the age of 18, household income is considered. After age 18, only income and assets of the individual are considered. Some individuals may not be eligible for SSI or Medicaid until they are 18 years old. The SSI and Medicaid process takes a while, so applying as soon as the individual is eligible can help with planning for the future when the individual may be ready to move into their own place and need services paid for with Medicaid dollars, or if there's a crisis in the family and the individual needs benefits. Remember to only provide information for the individual who is applying for benefits. If an individual is denied benefits, appeal the decision. Keep good documentation of actions you take, who you talk to, and the date when applying for benefits. If you have questions about how working will affect a person's benefits or eligibility for benefits, contact the Work Incentives Planning Assistance staff for assistance. The Home Help Services program provides payments to people who are providing individual, hands-on assistance to individuals for essential activities of daily living. This could be help with eating, using the bathroom, grooming, dressing, moving throughout their home, transferring from one position to another, or assistance with taking medication. Home Help Services is a program administered by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and individuals must have Medicaid to be eligible for these services. The services are designed to assist people with help they need to stay in their home. Home Help does not pay for transportation, yard work, heavy housework, home repairs, or reminding or prompting someone to do a task. Home Help providers must be at least 18 years old and can be a relative, friend, or someone hired through a healthcare agency. Food assistance, or SNAP benefits, uses an electronic benefits transfer card, EBT, that works like a debit card. Money is loaded on the card monthly. Food assistance program looks at household income, assets, and expenses. Most earned and unearned income is counted. Examples of countable income are wages, self-employment earnings, rental income, Social Security benefits, and veterans benefits. The food assistance program has an asset limit of $15,000. Examples of assets are cash on hand, checking and savings account, investments, some trusts, property, or real estate excluding the first home. Some expenses such as rent or mortgage, utilities, court-ordered child support payments, and dependent care expenses, and some additional medical expenses for people who have a disability or are over 60 are deducted from income when determining benefit amount. Individuals can apply online or by submitting a paper application. Keep a copy of your application and information submitted, and if benefits are denied, a decision can be appealed. Michigan Rehabilitation Services supports eligible individuals in preparing for, securing, and retaining employment, as well as supporting individuals who are continuing with their education. MRS provides pre-employment transition services to students with disabilities ages 14 to 26 in high school or college. Students learn about different jobs and what skills are needed to be successful in the job, options for continued education or training after high school, and advocating for needed accommodations. People who work with MRS receive individualized assistance at no cost to them. Individuals must have an existing physical or mental impairment, vocational or work-related barriers to their disability, and want and need services. A counselor works with each person to decide on an employment goal based on their interests and strengths, develop a plan that states what services they need and who will provide those services. Individuals may receive job-seeking skills, training, job placement, accommodations, assistive technology, job coaches and job training, tools, equipment or licenses needed to go to work, interpreters, prosthetics and other medical services, and support services such as interpreters, readers, and transportation. Some services are provided by the counselor, others may be provided by other agencies. MRS must serve individuals with the most significant disabilities. This is called Order of Selection for Services. Michigan Bureau of Services for Blind Persons, BSBP, provides opportunities for people who are blind or visually impaired to achieve employment and/or maximum and meaningful independence. BSBP offers pre-employment transition services that focus on workplace readiness and skills that will lead to success upon exiting the school system for students who are 14 to 26 who are legally blind. BSBP offers employment services to individuals who are legally blind, want to work, and have at least one functional barrier to employment. Depending on eligibility, services may include low vision equipment, vocational training, technical school training, college education, job development, placement, and follow-up services. The Client Assistance Program, CAP, is a federally funded program under Disability Rights Michigan. It's designed to assist individuals with disabilities in understanding and using rehabilitation and independent living services. If you're having trouble getting vocational rehabilitation services, a CAP advocate can assist you. Community mental health services are important for individuals with disabilities to live their most meaningful lives. These services can be used to provide lifelong supports to individuals to live independently, work, and participate fully in their communities with the supports and services they need. When I use the term independence or becoming independent, I mean whatever that looks like for the individual and with whatever individual supports and services the person needs. Medicaid pays for community mental health services and is the only payer for these services. This is one of the reasons it's important for individuals to apply for Medicaid as soon as they are eligible, even if they are covered under private insurance. The Medicaid Provider Manual is used to understand the eligibility criteria for services and how these Medicaid-covered services can be used to support people with disabilities in their everyday lives. Community mental health services being requested must be considered medically necessary for an individual. So what does this mean for people with disabilities? Medical necessity means that the service is designed and needed to help the individual achieve goals of community inclusion and participation, independence, recovery, or productivity. And this means more than just therapies like occupational or physical therapy. It can mean using the Medicaid service called Community Living Supports, which is hiring a support person to help someone participate in a yoga class or have dinner out with friends, go on vacation, go to work, or take a college course. Determining if a Medicaid-covered service is medically necessary is based on information from the individual, family, friends, support staff, doctors, and other healthcare providers, all the people who know the individual the best. Determination of medical necessity is based on the person-centered planning process, the person's preferences, interests, and strengths. The type of service, the amount of service, and how long the service will be provided must be enough to help the person achieve their desired goals, and this must be documented in the individual plan of service. Services must be provided in the least restrictive, most integrated environment for the individual. Services are based on individual needs, and services may not be denied based solely on preset limits of the cost, the amount, the scope, and the duration of the services. The purpose of community mental health system is to support individuals with disabilities to live successfully in their communities, achieving goals of community inclusion and participation, independence, and productivity. And a reminder that independence means with whatever supports and services the individual needs. Now that you know a bit about how to determine if a Medicaid-covered service is considered medically necessary, I'm going to talk about the person-centered planning process. This is a process for supporting an individual receiving services that builds on the individual's capacity to engage in activities that promote community life, and it honors the person's preferences, choices, and abilities. The person-centered planning process is person-directed. The person directs the planning process with necessary supports and accommodations, and decides when and where the planning meetings are held, what is discussed, and who is invited. Person-centered planning is required by state law and is part of the Mental Health Code. The process helps people who receive community mental health services set goals they want to achieve and secure needed supports and services to accomplish their goals. The person-centered planning process leads to the development of an individual plan of service that documents the needed services that the mental health system will pay for. Person-centered planning is an individualized process designed to respond to the unique needs and desires of each person. Every person is presumed competent to direct the planning process, achieve goals and outcomes, and build a meaningful life in the community. Person-centered planning should not be constrained by any preconceived limits on the person's ability to make choices. Every person has the strengths, can express preferences, and can make choices. The person-centered planning approach identifies the person's strengths, goals, choices, medical and support needs, and what the person wants to achieve. In order to be strength-based, the positive attributes of the person are documented and used as a foundation for building the person's goals and plans for community life, as well as strategies or interventions used to support the person's success. The person's choices and preferences are honored. Choices may include the family and friends involved in his or her life and the person-centered planning process, housing, employment, culture, social activities, vocational training, relationships and friendships, and transportation. Individual choice must be used to develop goals and to meet the person's needs and preferences for supports and services and how they are provided. The individual's choices are implemented unless there is a documented health and safety reason and they cannot be implemented. In this situation, the person-centered planning process should include strategies that support the person to implement their choices over time. Every person contributes to their community and has a right to choose how the supports and services will help them meaningfully participate and contribute in their community. The person-centered planning process helps people make connections, maximize their independence, and work toward achieving their goals. A person's cultural background is honored and valued in this process. This includes their language, including American Sign Language interpretation, religion, values, beliefs, customs, dietary choices, and other things chosen by the person. The individual plan of service is developed through the person-centered planning process. The goals are identified by the individual along with medically necessary supports and services, and these are documented in the individual plan of service. The person-centered planning process is used at least annually to update the individual plan of service and should be updated when needs or choices change. Assessments may be used to inform the person-centered planning process, but do not take the place of the person-centered planning process. They are used together to identify goals and risks, needs, and to authorize services. Going back to whether a service is considered medically necessary. If there are goals in the areas of independence, community inclusion, and participation and productivity documented through the person-centered planning process in the individual plan of service, then the services to support attainment of the goal is considered medically necessary. To summarize, the individual plan of service documents what services the mental health system will be paying for, the type of service that's needed, how much of the service is needed, and how long the service will be provided. No assessment scale or tool should be used to set a dollar figure or budget that limits the person-centered planning process. And a reminder that services may not be denied based solely on a preset limit of cost, amount, scope, or duration of the service. These decisions must be made on an individualized basis. These are some common services that individuals use to help them reach their goals and live a meaningful life. If individuals have Medicaid, they can access these services even if they are still in school and live at home with family. Supports coordination. This is someone to help an individual develop their individual plan of service through the person-centered planning process and link and coordinate services and supports for the individual. Respite services is intermittent short-term staffing to provide a break to unpaid caregivers. Community living supports, also known as direct care workers or staff. These are scheduled staff support to help individuals access and participate in their communities, work toward becoming more independent, and assist individuals in being productive. Skill building services are assistance to engage in meaningful activities such as recreation, work, or volunteering. Supported or integrated employment services provide job development as well as initial and ongoing supports at work to maintain employment in an integrated setting. And just a note that employment that I'm referring to in this service is outside of school hours. This would be after school, evenings, weekends, or school breaks. Medicaid will not pay for this service during school hours. Assistive technology or adaptations to vehicles, communication devices, items necessary to live independently, and environmental modifications like physical adaptations to the home to make it accessible and safe. Self-determination is not a program. It's the value that people who are served by the mental health system must be supported to have a meaningful life in the community. Meaningful life means different things to each of us, but includes work or volunteer activities that people choose, reciprocal relationships with other people in the community, daily activities that are chosen by the individual, and support for the individual to connect with others and contribute to their community. Arrangements that support self-determination enable people with disabilities to live in and be part of their communities. It's about choice and control. It means that people with disabilities decide what they want to do in their lives, where they live, where they work, who they spend time with, who they want to help them, and they control the things they need to get the life that they want. Person-centered planning is a central part of self-determination. Person-centered planning helps identify paid and non-paid services and supports to assist the individual realize their personal goals and aspirations. The individual determines and manages needed supports with assistance as needed from family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers to be part of ordinary community life. And there are so many things to think about as someone is getting ready to turn 18. These are just some thoughts as you get started down the road from school to adult life. Keep communication open, assume competence. Talk about what happens when an individual becomes an adult, what rights transfer. Encourage an active role in decision-making during the IEP process, and this looks different for everybody. Discuss options if someone needs help making decisions, who will support the individual and honor their choices and preferences. Continue open discussions about future living, employment, and daily activities, continuing education or training. And building community connections. What kind of help does an individual need? Help the individual apply for benefits to access services that will be needed throughout their life and stay involved. And remember, Michigan Alliance for Families is here to support your family through the transition from school to adult life. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, check out our video library on YouTube, and explore our website. And thank you so much for tuning in today to Transition Beyond IDEA.